If you've been watching the channel for a minute, you know I've been on an instant film run recently. Whether that's shooting Instax square film in a custom film back for my medium format camera, or shooting super expensive expired peel apart pack film in the studio and backstage at music festivals, I have been on an instant film craze recently. So I found myself on Facebook Marketplace and I found something called a day lab. Now you're probably wondering why I have a Polaroid lab sitting next to me right here. If you're not familiar with the Polaroid lab, this device lets you put your phone on top of it and it turns whatever photo you want into a genuine, real Polaroid. It takes a digital file on a screen and turns it into a physical, tangible object you can hold. Now, why am I telling you all this? What does this have to do with Facebook Marketplace? Well, this right here is called the Day Lab 35. And this guy right here can turn mounted slides into Polaroids. You see what I'm saying? It's kind of like a similar situation. If you hadn't heard of the Day Lab before this, makes sense. Not a lot of people seem to know about it, and there's only a handful of them online. It kind of looks like a small darkroom enlarger. You've got your CMY dials at the top, which of course are cyan, magenta, and yellow. You've got a lighten and darken feature. You've got a start button to expose your film. You've got a film type button to choose between different types of film, and a place for you to put your mounted slide. The Day Lab comes apart. The base that I have right now is a peel apart pack film base for it. So this lets you take a mounted slide and transfer it onto peel apart pack film. I really do not want to burn through an $150 pack of peel apart pack film, and one, potentially learn that this device barely works and therefore I've ruined a pack, and two, struggle to dial in the right colors onto the pack film and just waste a bunch of sheets. I don't want to do all that. That sounds really expensive and frustrating. But what I found on the internet is that they made a Polaroid 600 SX70 base for this thing. Here's the problem. You can't find it anywhere. I'm telling you, I scoured the entire internet. I looked on Facebook Marketplace in every region of the United States. I could not find this SX70 base. I even put it on my story asking if anybody had seen one or had one. And I have 3 people tell me that recently they threw away their SX70 base for the Day Lab, or they just threw the whole Day Lab away altogether, which was heartbreaking to hear. I did some research and I found someone who had one on Instagram. I reached out to them and I begged them to let me rent it, borrow it, just do a little project. I wanted to make this video. And they initially said no, which obviously I completely understand. I'm a stranger in your DMs. Why would you give me this piece of tech that is genuinely nowhere to be found on the internet? And then a couple days later, they said, yo, I'll send it to you. You can borrow it for a little bit. You know who you are. Thank you so much for lending this to me. I don't want to blow up your privacy if you don't want me to. So now we've got an SX70 base for the Day Lab 35. With this base, we now have the ability to take a mounted slide and turn it into a Polaroid on completely fresh film that they still produce today. That's not $150 a pack. But you know what? I think it would be fun to actually go out and shoot some slide first, mount the slides ourselves, and see what this thing is capable of. Shall we? If you saw my post on the community tab, you know that I missed a week posting YouTube videos. I was 19 weeks into sharing a video every single week when some personal stuff came up. Nothing to do with work. Work is great, but you know, some weeks are harder than others. Sometimes people come and go. You have a bad week. So loading up a roll of Ektachrome into my very neglected Nikon F2 to go out and shoot in very sunny LA was a very therapeutic process. Because at this point I don't know if my Day Lab works, I decided not to have a model come along or do anything super adventurous, because if I invest a ton of time into shooting slide and then the Day Lab doesn't work, then this video wouldn't even come out. I spent a little time in Echo Park photographing some scenes from up on top of the hill, and then the next morning I hit Elysian Park at about 7 a.m. to try to photograph some scenes that I usually wouldn't photograph on a daily basis. Okay, film is back and we have what looks like properly exposed positives. They actually look really nice. There was a couple images that I on purpose over and underexposed just to see what it would look like. I think all of these would actually look great run through the day lab or, you know, as a Polaroid. I don't think there's not a single one of these that feels like too overexposed or too underexposed. They all honestly look pretty good. I'm proud of myself. I haven't shot slide in years. So the first step is mounting these slides in slide holders like this. I got these over at Freestyle. They were $24.99 for 100, which is, I guess that's all right for 100, right? I don't know. Mounting these slides was a breeze. I chose to cut the film before taking them out of the sleeve so they didn't get dusty or covered in fingerprints, and then carefully slid them into their protective casings. I don't shoot slide that much because I really need the leniency that color negative film gives you. So looking at these slides with my own two eyes, film that I shot, but it's positive, you can see the image, you don't have to convert it, is always something that makes me go, dang, I wish I was shooting more of this. Now that we've got our slides mounted, it's time to load up the Daylab SX70 base. This thing is super funny to hold and look at because it genuinely just has kind of half of a Polaroid on it. Without the lens, the viewfinder, the whole top half. I loaded it with a pack of Polaroid 600 film, I pressed the red button and it ejected that first slide. I'm gonna plug this guy in and we're gonna do a test shot. Unfortunately, trying a test image is wasting a sheet of film and it's also gonna take like 15 minutes to process. So in 15 minutes, we'll know if this thing even works or not. We'll put a slide in. Let's start with something. Yeah, let's start with this LA skyline shot. So slide literally just sits in the carrier like that, and that's it. Maybe I need to cut off all the lights really quick. It's pretty dark in here, but I can definitely see the slide on the carrier. That's sick. Let's set all of the colors down to 0 and maybe add a little bit of warmth. Let's do 20 warmth. I'm gonna close this door and go to print and wait for it to say it's ready. Ever gonna say it's ready, okay. So pull the dark slide out. Oh, that's it, okay. Dark slide back in and I guess press the button. And now we wait. I'm gonna flip this one over and just leave it like that for 15 and we'll come back and see what happens. This first image with the graffitied pillars in front of the LA skyline came out pretty good. It sure looks like a Polaroid. And I think one thing worth noting is that it absolutely adopted the softness of an old Polaroid 600. I would assume that the lens inside of the Daylab is not an incredibly sharp lens like the Polaroid Labs or something like the Polaroid i2. And when you compare it to its slide film counterpart, you notice that you pretty much are losing every single bit of like super high res detail and sharpness. 100 speed slide film like Ektachrome has such minimal grain as is, so seeing it as a Polaroid is definitely interesting. I made a couple more Polaroids out of slides in the dark of my dining room, and honestly I didn't change any of the settings on the actual Daylab. And here we go. Oh, dark slide out. Dark slide in, print. So operationally, the Daylab is pretty simple. You choose a mounted slide, you put it into the carrier, you switch the Daylab over to the view function, and you align your image that's being projected inside of this white box to make sure it's gonna be in the image area of the Polaroid. You switch it over to print, you remove the dark slide, you press start, the bulb flashes, you put the dark slide back in, and then you press the eject button, and you wait for your photo. And honestly, I got quite a few pretty good results here. The images absolutely take on the characteristics of Polaroids. Some of them look pretty solid. There is some green tinting around the sides and some weird little kind of light leaks and stuff, but that might be the cause of my Daylab not being light tight anymore. And if you're not super careful about framing and you accidentally bump the table or something, the carrier will get misaligned and you will get a black bar on your image like this because you have to be so specific about where your mounted slide is in the carrier for you to get a perfectly framed image. As you can see on screen, they look vastly different to their slide film counterparts, but it's still a cool little experiment to have done. My favorites are this close-up photo of the Jeep and also this wide shot of the Jeep in downtown LA. And then also this image of these sort of graffitied out pillars with downtown LA in the background. All the other ones are just all right, I think. This was such a fun experiment because this is just a method of making a Polaroid that is so far gone. Like, there's probably a very small handful of people who are currently using this device still to this day. There are people that love the process and just love experimentation. As you can see online, there's not a lot to be found, and I know a couple people who have thrown theirs away recently. So I really appreciate my friend for sending me the SX70 base so I could try this out. This only cost me $40 instead of $150 for 10 photos, and I was able to, you know, process like 14 of them. So I'm excited to have been able to try this out. Thank you so much for watching. Fun little experimental video. I will see you guys next time. Peace.